Now it is time for the last word with Jonathan Capehart in for Lawrence tonight. Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening, Eamon. Looking at us on the screen, this is literally going to be night and day in a month or so when our new shows start. I can get used to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I have to say I enjoy the evening shift a little bit better. I'm not a morning person.
Well, see, then we both got the better end of the stick.
Exactly.
Eamon, thanks very much.
Likewise, my friend.
Donald Trump deliberately waited until the market closed yesterday before announcing his plan to impose a 10% tariff on all foreign goods, in addition to more reciprocal tariffs levied against other countries, including allies. And now we know why. Today, the stock market suffered its biggest one-day loss since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in the first Trump term. The Dow lost nearly 1,700 points. The Nasdaq plunged 7%. And the S&P 500 dropped nearly 5%, wiping out $3.1 trillion in market value. Now, that may be hard to grasp, unless you were planning on retiring soon and you just saw your nest egg evaporate. The very real money you took from your paycheck and put away in your retirement fund tanked by Trump tariff chaos. Donald Trump didn't seem too worried as he headed to Florida to golf today.
The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal?
Yeah, no, that's not what the financial experts see.
The world was yesterday sort of bracing for a bazooka, but Trump decided he was going to go the Chicago way, and he dropped an economic Moab.
The Dow's drop today will put it solidly in the top 5 biggest point losses in history. Try and slap some lipstick on this pig of a market. It's not a pretty market.
Those numbers that were on that grid, they don't mean anything. They came up with it because they were in a hurry to cobble something together.
So this tariff policy looks like it's basically resting on made-up numbers.
And I will say the traders who are passing this on to me are also saying, what a very well-known one, it's absurd and shows a kindergarten-level understanding of international trade.
Right. I don't have a single forecaster saying, because of these tariffs, we are forecasting more U.S. growth, more employment, and lower inflation. Every forecaster is the opposite.
Try to slap some lipstick on this pig of a market. And that's from Fox Business. But it's not just the markets that were in turmoil. The Washington Post reports, quote, Jeep maker Stellantis said it was temporarily laying off 900 workers at 5 plants in Michigan and Indiana and pausing production at factories in Canada and Mexico while it tries to figure out the medium and long-term effects of these tariffs. An analysis by the Budget Lab at Yale University estimates the total impact from Trump's tariffs could cost the average household $3,800 per year. The Economist put it this way: if you fail to spot America being looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, or it being cruelly denied a turn to prosper, then congratulations. You have a firmer grip on reality than the President of the United States. It's hard to know which is more unsettling, that the leader of the free world could spout complete drivel about its most successful and admired economy, or the fact that on April 2nd, spurred on by his delusions, Donald Trump announced the biggest break in America's trade policy in over a century and committed the most profound, harmful, and unnecessary economic error in the modern era. The Wall Street Journal editorial board laid out the many ways that these Trump tariffs will be detrimental to the U.S. economy, ending with, quote, Mr. Trump's tariffs are the biggest policy shock to the world trading system since Richard Nixon blew up Bretton Woods in 1971. As with that decision, Mr. Trump is acting with little understanding about the damage his tariffs will cause. The disturbance might not be as little as he imagines. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick seemed unbothered by the disturbance that Americans will face.
Is there a red line for you pulling back and saying, okay, hold on, we're going to rethink things?
No, I mean, come on. What you've got to realize is, sure, there's going to be some short-term movement, but this is a reordering of global trade.
Just one day after 4 Senate Republicans voted with Democrats to pass a resolution to undo Trump's tariffs on Canada, Senate Republicans are looking at ways to limit Donald Trump's ability to impose wide-ranging tariffs without Congress. NBC News reports that Republican Senator Chuck Grassley introduced a bill that would reassert Congress's authority and slap restrictions on the president's power to levy tariffs. Senator Thom Tillis, a Republican of North Carolina, praised Grassley for the bill because he does believe that we're a co-equal branch. He said he'd vote for it, though it's unclear if the bill will be brought to the Senate floor. Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, the author of the resolution, said many more than 4 Republicans were interested in his resolution than ultimately voted for it, predicting that more will come aboard as the economic reality sets in. The Wall Street Journal editorial board even went as far as to challenge Donald Trump's authority to levy these tariffs by declaring some non-existent national emergency, writing, quote, "None of these trade provisions empowers Mr. Trump to impose tariffs on all imports from all countries based on an arbitrary formula. Someone should sue to block his abuse of power." It would be one thing if the abuse of power and chaos were limited to just his trade policy, but obviously it is not. Today, NBC News reports that the Inspector General at the Pentagon announced that it would investigate allegations that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth used the commercially available messaging app Signal to discuss classified information about a U.S. military strike in Yemen. The announcement comes about 10 days after The Atlantic revealed that its editor-in-chief was inadvertently added to a Signal group chat that included Hegseth, Vice President J.D. Vance, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and other senior administration officials discussing upcoming military actions. Also today, 3 people familiar with the matter tell NBC News that Donald Trump fired at least 3 National Security Council officials after an Oval Office meeting with far-right conspiracy theorist Laura Loomer, who expressed dissatisfaction with some officials on his national security team. The New York Times reports, quote, "The decision came after Ms. Loomer vilified the staff members by name during a meeting on Wednesday when she walked into the White House with a sheaf of papers attacking the character and loyalty of numerous NSC officials. Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, joined later in the meeting and briefly defended some of his staff, though it was clear he had little, if any, power to protect their jobs." No one who voted for Trump can claim they did not vote for this, because Trump stashed classified government documents in the bathroom. And Trump brought 9/11 conspiracy theorist Laura Loomer as his guest to Ground Zero on September 11th. Trump won 49% of the vote in November, but the fight isn't over. Tonight, Kamala Harris spoke publicly for the first time about Trump's second-term chaos at the Leading Women Define Summit in California.
Fear has a way of being contagious. Okay? When one person has fear, it has a way of spreading to those around them and spreading. And we are witnessing that, no doubt. But I say this also, my dear friends, courage is also contagious. Courage is also contagious. When one person, when a few stand with the courage, that is the courage exhibited by the leaders in this room every day, to stand, to have the courage to say, I feel fear. The courage to say what is happening is wrong. The courage to say that there is a way that we must chart to get through this. Understanding our power in the democracy we still have if we hold on to it. Courage is contagious.
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Gabe Amo of Rhode Island, who just came from a town hall. Congressman, great to see you. How are people reacting to the news of the stock market and Trump's tariffs?
Well, what I heard from my constituents tonight, I'm sure is being felt by people across this country, which is great fear and concern about the actions of our president. I mean, we see these tariffs come down, which are only going to yield layoffs, higher prices, ruined diplomatic relations, and no concern. The Commerce Secretary, the president himself, this is just a blip to them. These are real people's lives that are being affected. And I heard that tonight from my constituents. That combined with the pursuit of tax cuts for billionaires, as they cut Medicaid and SNAP, people are afraid.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure one thing people want is an explanation, Congressman. What do you say about policy that seems to have no rationale other than the whim of a king?
It's really hard to explain. I'll be honest, because, we exercise logic and thoughtfulness. People elect their leaders because they think they're going to have a plan, not arbitrarily decide how they are going to cut really essential lifelines to the global economy and really hurting everybody across the country. And so it's hard to reason out with people. And I just say that these folks are at best poorly informed, at worst coming after the core of our values. And I'm afraid it's the worst.
Mm-hmm. Well, what other specific issues came up as top of mind for your voters, Congressman?
A lot of the lawlessness. We have heard and seen the arbitrary cutting of services at the Social Security Administration. We have seen wide layoffs and attempts to illegally terminate federal employees, some of whom were in that room tonight. And so the fear that these decisions being made on a whim, driven by Elon Musk's Doge, the real complacency and compliance that we see out of Republicans in the House who are just letting this happen and really not seeing any courage, contrary to what the vice president said, any courage from leaders on the other side of the aisle.
The Boston Globe reports food banks across New England are scrambling after the Trump administration this month cut some $1 billion from programs that help them obtain food for distribution. With the support of federal assistance amounts to 10 to 30% of their total distributions. Congressman Amo, what can you say to voters who are worried about the future impact of Trump's cuts?
Look, I will say what I've said here at home. I visited the Rhode Island Community Food Bank a couple weeks ago to communicate my real concern with regard to the plans that are part of the budget resolution that came out of the House a few weeks ago. And I've said that we have to be vocal. We have to be sure to communicate out the needs that are in our communities, and we have to dig in and support each other. At this time of need, where we are being abandoned by the Trump administration and Republicans in Congress, we have to focus on the people at home and support great organizations that help people who need it the most. And in fact, because of these actions, we're seeing wider use of food banks here in my state.
Congressman Amo, I got to get you on one more thing, because we saw some big Democratic wins this week. Susan Crawford won in that Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. Senator Cory Booker broke a filibuster record speaking against Donald Trump. Did any of that penetrate to local voters you talked to?
Big time. When I said Wisconsin, there was a round of applause in the room. Now, these are people who don't have the practice of electing judges, but we at home know that that is a blow for the progress that we are going to make as we work towards elections around this country. I would additionally say when Senator Booker was invoked, I shared my story of going to the Senate chamber to witness this moment in history where I wrote a note to my friend saying, keep going, brother, because we will win for the people we serve. And people in that room tonight felt inspiration. I'm certainly inspired, but we have to keep going. Just like the senator did, we'll keep pushing for the American people.
I'm curious, Congressman, a round of applause for Wisconsin. People know what Senator Booker did. Do you sense that there's a shift in the mood of your constituents between pre-Wisconsin and Senator Booker and where we are, what you saw tonight?
Well, I think people are focused on where can we find beams and lights of hope out there. And so when you have real examples of what happens when we come together, when we work hard, when we seek to amplify our message and our values, people can rally around that. So that's sort of the message here of this week is we have to give people something to work towards. We have to give people a sense that their hope will be met with action and really oriented on doing what we need to do to get back not only the hearts and minds, but the sort of the emphasis and focus on delivering results for people.
Congressman Gabe Amo of Rhode Island, thank you very much for coming to The Last Word.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
At the top of the show, we played you Vice President Kamala Harris's first public comments on the Trump chaos of these first 75 days. MSNBC's Michelle Norris was in the room in California for Harris's remarks, and she joins us now. Michelle, let me play one more clip. Let me play one more clip of Harris and get your reaction on the other side.
There is a sense of fear that has been taking hold in our country. And I understand it. But we're saying people stay quiet. We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Michelle, your reaction to that?
Well, hello, Jonathan. Thanks for having me here from California. It's hard not to say I told you so on a day where the stock market took a dive, where we're seeing more executive action that is questionable and, as she said, most likely unconstitutional and most likely illegal also. And so you saw her use her voice in a way that we haven't heard for a while. People have been asking, where has she been? Well, she showed up today with a very strong message, a message that was inspirational, a message that reminded people that they can use their voice and they can use their power. It was a room full of women, as you heard there in their response, very supportive of her, and a room. But really, anyone who's watching this clip probably can't help but imagine what a different conversation we might be having if we saw a different election outcome. And I imagine that people who did not vote for Kamala Harris are also asking themselves that question on a day where we saw the economy tank like this, and where we have seen so many entanglements in the court, where we have seen actions that are taken, big sweeping actions that have raise serious questions about the foundation of our economy without a clear plan on what the impact of those tariffs would be, without a clear plan on how that will affect states, on how it will affect Main Street, how it will affect Wall Street, and how it will affect people who are sitting at their kitchen tables going into the weekend and wondering about their 401k plans, wondering about their savings, wondering about their ability to feed their families, and wondering about their ability to move forward in America with confidence that the economy will continue to roll forward and that America will have allies that have always stood by us. I mean, I think that that's one of the more amazing things about what we've seen this week is the fact that the White House doesn't seem to have a clear plan and did not have a clear understanding of the immediate impact of the tariffs. And so what you heard in that room today was someone who was trying to encourage people not to give up, to use their voice, and to understand that even though some of these measures that have been taken are sweeping, they are not final. And that there is still an opportunity to push back. And it was significant that this also happened on the heels of Cory Booker using his voice. And in some ways that felt like a needle drop that invited people to, hit the floor. And to try to use their voice to fight for democracy. And I think that was one of the most important things she said, the democracy that we have right now, that we have to hold on to and that we have to fight for.
Michelle, early you may have heard me say this, no one who voted for Trump can say they didn't know what they were voting for. But that being said, do you think Vice President Harris will stay in the public arena to be the living, breathing proof of it didn't have to be this way?
Well, whether she stays in the public arena or not, I mean, just her very presence, is the fact that she's a living, breathing proof that it didn't have to be this way. But what she said in the room today, it's clear that she wants to use her voice, that she's looking for the right ways to use her voice and the right venues to use her voice, because she knows that there are people who do want to hear from her, and trying to figure out what her next role will be. But I don't think that she will be completely silent. She cares about democracy. She said that today. She cares about voters. And one of the interesting things that she noted is she cares about all voters, not just the people who cast votes for her, not just the 92%. She cares about all voters. And that's what we deserve in this country in our leadership. Someone who will represent all of America, not just the people that voted for them, not just the people who are blindly loyal to them. All people who are the citizens of this country deserve and should expect that kind of leadership.
That is the definition of a leader. Michelle Norris, thank you very much for jumping in front of a camera there in California.
Thank you, Jonathan. Glad to be with you.
And coming up, Senator Cory Booker spent 25 hours and 4 minutes on the Senate floor warning Americans that these are not normal times. Donald Trump's destruction of American governance isn't normal. And in the process, Senator Booker put a racist South Carolina senator's record for longest filibuster in the dustbin of history. Senator James Clyburn of South Carolina joins us next.
I asked you, are you better off than you were 72 days ago economically? I asked that question. Ask it to your friends. Are they better off economically? Well, I don't see how they could be, because prices are up, stock market's down, the risk of recession is climbing, consumer confidence is in the gutter, 401k plans are losing value. Are you better off than you were 72 days ago under this president's leadership? So I know there's a lot of people who are angry, who are worried, who are feeling overwhelmed, who are struggling to make ends meet, but I know of only one way to do this, and I'm trying to do it myself, is to do things differently, to stand up, to speak up, to not act like this is just normal in our country.
On Tuesday, in his marathon 25-hour speech demanding us to wake up to the crisis in America, Cory Booker asked, "Are you better off now than you were before?" And tonight, this headline: stocks suffer biggest one-day wipeout in value since March 2020. This is exactly what Senator Booker spent 25 hours and 4 minutes trying to point out during his marathon speech on the Senate floor, that none of this is normal. The firing of thousands of federal workers isn't normal. The 19th century tariffs aren't normal. The stock market tanking, and then the president saying, quote, "Everything is going well," is not normal. These are not normal times. Senator Booker was protesting against an administration that is bending, breaking, and twisting the norms of American governance. Tonight, former Vice President Kamala Harris spoke out about how Trump is trying to erase the progress we've made as a nation.
What has changed since 2016 is that we are in the midst of seeing progress being rolled back, policies that we birthed being rolled back, the terms that we use for what is progress in America being turned into a pejorative, intended to deny the facts and to deny smart policy, by the way, effective policy, by the way, that has been proven to yield a great return on that investment.
Senator Booker, the first black senator from my home state of New Jersey, is proof of that investment. And Senator Booker broke the filibuster record of South Carolina Senator Strom Thurmond, who spoke for more than 24 hours in 1957 against the Civil Rights Act. Strom Thurmond will only be remembered now as an infamous racist, while Senator Cory Booker will take his place in history as a reminder of how far we've come. And joining us now, former Assistant Democratic Leader in the House of Representatives, Congressman James Clyburn of South Carolina. Congressman Clyburn, always great to see you. How hard is it to make people believe that all of this, the stocks tanking, the tariffs, the firings, that this is not normal for American governance?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Jonathan. No, this is not normal. But the fact of the matter is, it may be normal for Donald Trump. We just dropped to the lowest we've been in the stock market since Donald Trump was president. 2020. He was president when we were down this low before. So this may be the way he likes it. He seemed to be interested only in breaking things, in doing abnormal things, and maybe this is reminiscent of who he is. But I want to thank our good friend Cory Booker, because he has become what I like to call the leader of a resurgence. Strom Thurmond was a resistor. He set that record back in 1957, resisting civil rights law. We came out of the called redeemers through the resistors. Now we've got a resurgence. You know what's kind of interesting about this? The word resurgence, I remember it from my Bible studies. You know, I didn't go to the seminary, but I used to study the Bible quite a bit. That's a religious word that has a meaning about the resurrection. That's what resurgence is. So maybe Cory Booker has resurrected our party that has been looked like it's a little bit down, but we are now up.
You know, Congressman Clyburn, a bipartisan group of senators introduced a resolution to rein in any future tariffs, limiting the president's power to impose tariffs and requiring the president to give Congress notice in advance. Is there anything more that Democrats can do?
Yes, and I think we're doing it. Down in Florida, I think Jamie Raskin is down there with the youngest member of our caucus. People are all over doing things. And I do believe that's why Senator Booker's, let's just call it filibuster, that's what it was. He really has sort of ignited something in our party. It's been there sort of latent all the time. And he decided to grab the bull by the horns, get on the floor, and he has been magnetic. People are joining with him. And we're going to be doing a whole lot of different things. Hakeem Jeffries is doing great work with our House Democratic Caucus. You know, people don't pay as much attention to us on the House side as they do on the Senate side. We understand that. But Hakeem is doing great work. We are coming together as a party. And I think between Booker's speech on the floor, between the results up there in Wisconsin on Tuesday, and of course, I would put in the results in Florida as well. Mm-hmm. People now see that our party is not dead. We have been resurrected, and we are going to celebrate this Easter season that we're about to have with a new revival.
Congressman James Clyburn, I always have 10 more questions to ask you and 0 time to ask them. Thank you very much, as always, for coming to The Last Word.
Thank you very much for having me.
And coming up today, federal judge James Boasberg signaled he is strongly considering holding Trump administration officials in contempt of court for their rush to deport hundreds of people to El Salvador on Donald Trump's order. Andrew Weissman and Adam Klasfeld will join us to discuss what happened in that courtroom today. That's next. Today, a federal judge appeared to lay the groundwork for finding Trump officials in contempt of court for defying his order to send deportation flights bound for El Salvador back to the United States. Chief U.S. District Judge James Boasberg told the government, quote, "If you really believed everything you did that day was legal and could survive a court challenge, I can't believe you ever would have operated in the way you did." Throughout the roughly half-hour-long hearing, Judge Boasberg put a top Department of Justice official on defense. Judge Boasberg drilled into which Trump administration officials may have disobeyed his March 15th orders, asking at one point, quote, "If I don't find your legal arguments convincing, and I believe there is probable cause to find contempt, what I am asking is, how should I determine who the contemnor or contemnors are?" Judge Boasberg demanded to know the names of the Trump administration officials who knew about his restraining order on March 15th before the flights landed in El Salvador. Deputy Assistant Attorney General Drew Anson said that he told several officials about it right away, and some Justice Department officials were also aware of it. Judge Boasberg appears to be preparing for the next steps, asking at one point, quote, "If I find probable cause for contempt, does the government want an opportunity to purge the contempt?" Since Judge Boasberg issued his temporary restraining orders on March 15th, the Trump administration has claimed the order protected Venezuelan gang members. Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote that day, quote, "Tonight, a D.C. trial judge supported Tren de Aragua terrorists over the safety of Americans." But at today's hearing, Judge Boasberg cornered the DOJ's lawyer into all but admitting that was a lie. DOJ's Drew Ensign agreed that the order does not prevent the deportation of any gang members, only the use of a wartime statute to expel immigrants without due process. After that admission, Boasberg pressed him, quote, "So, if any of your clients or anyone in the administration continues to make statements that are contrary to what I just said, those statements would not be truthful. Isn't that right?" Ensign replied, "Yes, Your Honor. To the extent that they are contrary to things that are true, they would be false." The judge replied, "They would indeed." Judge Boasberg ended today's hearing without a ruling, indicating that he wouldn't issue an opinion before next week. Joining us now, legal reporter Adam Klasfeld, who covered today's hearing for us. Adam, I couldn't help but chuckle reading that back and forth between the judge and that DOJ lawyer. But you listened in on today's hearing. Fill us in on what we can't hear in the transcript. How tense did things get in court?
And as you could see in that quote in particular, the sarcasm was palpable. The whole line, indeed, when to the extent that it's true, it's not true, it's going to be false. There were several moments like that. And you know that things are going sideways for one of the parties in a hearing when a federal judge reminds a lawyer that they're an officer of the court. And Judge Boasberg did just that, reminded Ensign that he was an officer of the court when asking him, are you really telling me that you didn't know during that hearing on March 15th that the planes were in the air, that you didn't talk to your clients? He was very incredulous about what the senior DOJ lawyer was telling him then. And that was only one time where he expressed intense skepticism, where he kept reminding that the possible next step here is contempt. And even though he didn't release a ruling at the end of that hearing, I doubt that there was anyone listening to it that is really wondering what that ruling is going to say next week.
Mm-hmm. And Adam, let me read what the judge said in response to the Trump team claim that they had complied with his order. This is the judge. Okay, so it seems to me that there is a fair likelihood that that is not correct. And in fact, that the government acted in bad faith throughout that day. If you really believed everything you did that day was legal and could survive a court challenge, I can't believe you ever would have operated in the way you did. How serious are the judge's comments that it was bad faith?
Yeah, I think anytime a judge says that the government is acting in bad faith, the government should be nervous, especially when the government is facing a potential finding of contempt. Right now, this was, as you noted, a roughly half-hour hearing, maybe a little more than that, very quick, and he had very pointed questions at the government the entire time. Very few questions for the plaintiff's attorneys at the ACLU. And when he did finally question the ACLU, he said, well, if we go to contempt proceedings, how should they look like? What should they look like? The judge is now getting the names of officials that he thinks may have committed contempt. He's exploring options and trying to lay out the groundwork, as you said. And I think the government has a sure sign of where things are headed.
Adam Klasfeld, thank you, as always, for coming to The Last Word.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And coming up, a big name Democrat in New Hampshire just announced he's running for Senate in 2026, and he's ready to take on Trump and Elon Musk. Congressman Chris Pappas joins us next. New Hampshire Democratic Congressman Chris Pappas appeared on this program after he wrapped up his 10-county listening tour last week. And today, Congressman Pappas officially launched his campaign for U.S. Senate at the Manchester establishment his family founded 108 years ago.
Let's get out and do the work required of us. Let's stand up. Let's stand together. Let's fight back, and let's win.
In his campaign launch video, Congressman Pappas took aim at Elon Musk and Republicans' potential cuts to Social Security and Medicaid.
Everywhere we go, we hear it.
Hey, everyone. Hi.
Veterans, parents, small business owners, people who've done everything right, asking, why does it feel like the system's rigged?
You think about the Social Security office that's going to be closed in Littleton, drastic cuts to Medicaid, all in the name of giving big tax breaks to billionaires like Elon Musk.
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Chris Pappas of New Hampshire. He is running for U.S. Senate in 2026. Congressman Pappas, good to see you again. So, what is the top issue for voters in your state?
Jonathan, it's great to be on with you. We just had a successful launch of our Senate campaign today. And this campaign is all about standing up for what counts. It's about standing up for our democracy, making sure that the people's voice is carried all the way to Washington, D.C., that we're confronting the damage that the Trump administration and Elon Musk are doing on a day-to-day basis to programs that serve people right here in my state. And certainly it's about the economy. It's about making sure that we have policies that lower prices. But obviously we see today on full display the damage that Donald Trump is doing to our economy in real time. He is making things more expensive. He's hurting our small businesses. He's destroying our tourist industry here in New Hampshire, all in the name of giving a big tax break to Elon Musk. So we are working hard to bring people together, to make sure they have a voice, and to know that these are just no ordinary times here. These are extraordinary times. It's a moment where we need to stand up and be counted and be channeling the anxiety, the fear, the anger that is expressed by voters I meet every day into action in Washington, D.C. on their behalf.
Well, speaking of the impact on businesses, Adria Bagshaw, the owner of a company that manufactures metal parts in New Hampshire, introduced you at your event today. What are small business owners like her telling you about the impact the Trump tariffs could have on their businesses and their customers?
Well, her business has been open since the late 1800s, a multi-generational family business, much like mine, which has been open since the early 1900s, 4 generations of my family that run that business in Manchester. The fact is, whether you're in hospitality, whether you're in manufacturing, regardless of what your small business is, there's going to be an impact for you. So whether that means the cost of raw goods is going up, or just disruptions to the way that you reach your customers, things are getting more expensive for businesses and consumers as well. This is political malpractice by the administration. They are setting off a bomb inside our economy, and it is jacking up prices at a time where we just can't afford for anything to be more expensive. You know, think of our businesses and everything they've been through over the last 5 years. They were beginning to get to a more normal footing, and now to have these tariffs placed upon them, this is going to disrupt what they do. It's going to dry up certain customer bases. It's going to make their products more expensive, and that's only going to cause them to pull back and lower the forecast of what they are able to do to continue to function. New Hampshire's, like many other states, Main Street businesses drive our economy here in New Hampshire, and they need leadership in Washington that's going to be practical about how we address workforce challenges, housing challenges. But this is taking us in the wrong direction, and that's why we urge people to go to chrispappas.org, join our fight, because we need to take back the U.S. Senate and have some checks and balances in Washington.
Congressman Chris Pappas of New Hampshire, newly minted candidate for the United States Senate. Thank you very much for coming to The Last Word. And we'll be right back. That is tonight's Last Word. Lawrence will be back tomorrow.